Welcome back to Connecting the Dots. We've been talking through the EMF framework, and this week we're going to talk about the E, or the engage component. Now, there can be a lot of angst when it comes to talking about provider ratings with doctors, and a lot of times they'll say things like, you can't rate me like a toaster, or they'll want to pause and hold until they can get their scores up to a certain place before they even begin the process. So the question is, how do you actually find a group of innovators that you can work with to get the process started? Well, a lot of times what our clients will begin doing is they'll actually begin by placing information around why transparency is so important in the organization. And they'll place it in various meetings and strategic physical places in the organization, along with other communications. And what they'll do is they'll talk about this, back it up with research, statistics, and tie it into a compelling story that ties into their existing culture. But then what they'll also do, and this is a key component, is they'll add in automated report cards that will go to the providers and the executives, showing them exactly what they look like today if a user goes out and searches for them online. And then it also compares that with what it could be if they use their CAHPS data for transparency. And what this does every single time is it has two really big aha moments for everyone. Number one, they realize they're already being rated like a toaster. They're already being rated online. People are using this information, and the information tends to skew negative online because of the nature of that medium. And what they also realize is that by taking the use of their CAHPS data, they can take control of that process and they can own it. They realize that by using that data, that it's actually not as scary as they think, because they're used to seeing star ratings, or they're used to seeing patient experience data in the form of percentile rankings. And that's very, very different than a star rating, which is an average score. And turns out, most of the time, people are pretty satisfied with their care, as doctors are very tightly packed together in these scores, and so scores tend to be very good. So what this always ends up happening is this shows the innovators that transparency is an exciting thing. And when you do this, and a group of providers always raise their hands saying, hey, we want to go first, we want to help you push this forward. And so when you do this right, there's other components to this, coming to how you structure the process for maximum confidence, how making sure that you choose the right doctors and strategically picking that, as well as kind of where you put this information around the organization and how you do it. But when you do it right, you ultimately will not have to have edicts from above. You won't have to have large announcements and such. You'll have people pushing you to want to get into this process, and the wave of transparency will have begun. So next week, we're going to talk a little bit about how you move the organization actually towards transparency and build momentum and champions in that process. So join us next week on Connecting the Dots.